Hi everyone, welcome to OdinSchool. We're back in front of you today with another Odin talk. This time we have Ark Mahata. He's an expert in the backend technologies with over 12 years of experience in different companies, working on different languages. We're going to learn a lot from him today. But before that, let me briefly introduce OdinSchool for those of you who don't know. At OdinSchool, we are an upskilling platform focusing on new age tech. So we upskill graduates and working professionals in these technologies. The specialization that we bring to the table is that we are highly aligned to industry requirements. Our curriculum is very dynamic. We keep adding, we keep talking to the companies, understand what their latest requirements are, and incorporate that into the curriculum so that people who learn with us become highly employable and highly aligned to the skill sets that the industry is looking for. And in line with these efforts, we keep having these Odin Talks discussions with experts who come and share their experience and help us understand what is it that the industry is looking for right now. And these are people who come with a lot of years of experience, so they have seen the industry evolve, and these are the best people to give us insights, and we love sharing these insights with all of you. So Ark is here with us today. He is a senior developer with DP World. Um, he started his career around 12 years ago, and he has expertise in multiple areas. He has also led and managed full stack teams, demonstrating strong leadership and project management skills as well. He's worked in different areas, including microservices, cloud computing, distributed systems, serverless computing, containerization, workflows, no code development, NoSQL graph databases, and a lot of other things. So Ark, welcome to you. Great to have you with us today, and looking forward to having a very engaging discussion over the next hour. To start with, we would love to know more about you. Please tell us more about you, specifically about your journey in the field of software development. Also, we'd like to know a little more about your company, DP World.
Okay, sure. Yeah, it's a pleasure to sort of join and share insights like whatever I've learned in 12 years. So, to start with, I did my BTech in computer science in 2011, and for the past 12 years, like I've been working in software development, managing teams, etc. So, primarily, I would say like I have experience of 12 years in design and development of software products and services, as well as product management to a sense. And then if I talk about my journey, right, it's been good. I had opportunity to work with some sort of prestigious and innovative companies around the world in different domains. So I started off with Verizon, where basically I was a software developer. Skill wise, like it was predominantly in C sharp, and I was actually working in a platform that sort of powered different channels like web app, IVR, self-serve solutions, etc. There, sort of, I got an opportunity to take ownership and work independently in certain like good initiatives, which was sort of a starting point for me and great. Then I joined Make My Trip, which is sort of a prominent player in travel and e-commerce sector. My time in Make My Trip sort of allowed me to expand my expertise by working on different set of diverse projects and technologies. So there I sort of started off as a C# developer, transition to Java. So basically I started working on Java. I got opportunity to grow along with the company, and let's say in general with the industry itself, because like if you see like 8, 9, 10 years back, like most of the systems were sort of in a different mode of operandi. And as and when like mobile sort of kicked in, right, so the whole sort of landscape changed, and the requirement which we say like functional and non-functional requirements, right, they also sort of evolved with all those things. And that is when basically you see most of the sort of technology sort of jumping in, like whatever you see today, the diversity that you have over there, right, predominantly like industry started adopting it in that particular moment of time. So there I worked on applications like OMS, order management platform, CRM platforms, which is basically customer relationship management, IVR, the toll free numbers that you see, chatbot, survey management applications, etc. Then I collaborated with different affiliates. So like Amazon, Google Pay, Phone Pay, sort of where we created powerful facade layers for integration with external systems and APIs. And then again, and in the later part of my journey, sort of there were much more challenging times, which were during COVID. So basically, a lot of things were happening in the travel domain, and it was like very robust. So we had to put a lot of effort in re-engineering and maybe extending the sort of solutions that we were providing to address like the growing customer concerns and queries that were actually coming in. So it was sort of uh, I would say a phase like which doesn't really happen, but it happened. So that was there. And being part of these all things, right, what I learned about the industry is like how fast paced it is, how the customer requirements sort of keep changing. And you have to have this sort of core capabilities where basically you always think customer first, right? So customer centric sort of environment. And that actually contributed in enhancing my development and growth as well. Okay, then I've moved to Airtel more on leadership role. So I was it was into fintech, so I was in a team leading a team of financial services. So I gained valuable insights there into the financial industry and building solutions to streamline lending process. So that is a brief about myself. So this is what I've done, and right now basically I'm in DP world. So DP World, like most of us won't have heard about it, but it's a world leader in global supply chain solutions. So specializing in sort of, you can say, cargo logistics, marine services, terminal operations, and technology. So just to give you a perspective, like it kind of handles more than 10% of the global trade that happens right through its products and services. So that's it. Yeah.
That's huge volume. Uh, Great, good to know. When such rich experience you've had over the last 12 years. Ark, what do you think are the 3 or 4 major changes that have taken place over the last 12 years? Because you've seen the industry evolve. You know, you've probably been there at the right time, at the right place, doing cutting edge things in a world that is evolving so quickly. So, what would be
So
the 3, 4 key things that have changed over a period of time?
see, like if we talk about it, right, in terms of technology, it has evolved a lot. As I said, like mobile sort of was a very big thing. Then basically you had this internet service providers, right? Geo sort of came in and sort of it started providing services at very sort of low cost. So that was, I would say, a very big driver in India. If you go to any e-commerce company anywhere, right? If you ask people, that sort of onboarded a lot of user base that is there in India. Before that, like internet cost as well as everything, you know, right? It was on the higher side, so it kind of afforded people to own devices as well as like get access to internet. So that was huge. That is something that played a very predominant role, I think, in the last 5-10 years. And along with that, now basically, if you talk about it, right, you have things like cloud computing. So this is big. Okay, cloud computing is big. Everyone, every organization sort of earlier had to sort of maintain their own you can say physical hardwares, and then again, like you need to have all that sort of expertise over there. So normally companies, e-commerce companies, etc., what they try to do is they try to work on their core capability. So if we are developers, we would actually focus on writing code, adding behaviors, etc. So they started adopting this cloud computing technologies, which sort of kind of streamlined a lot of things for us, like it kinds of give you scalability, reliability, etc. Then I would say the major thing that came up in this particular moment of time is basically your AI and ML. So it has transformed the way sort of businesses operate, and like it has diverse sort of applications like in automation, NLP, visual technologies, etc. Right? You kind of make machines learn, and they kind of have a feedback loop where they are able to perform those sort of things. So this is huge, and along with that came the need of like big data and analytics. So
Right.
these two kind of go hand in hand. So even if you talk about machine learning, right? You develop models, algorithms, etc. Those are there, but the underlying layer which people don't see is basically this big data and analytics data platforms that basically people uh, sort of use. They leverage like Hadoop, Spark, NoSQL. And then recently, you can say in the last 2 or 3 years, there have been a couple of things like blockchain, which sort of democratizes the entire ecosystem. Applications across, predominantly people know it as cryptocurrency, but it has various sort of applications, and most of the financial sort of companies are using that. And then you have AR and VR, in which basically nowadays you see metaverse. So Meta is actually invested, so it didn't kick on, but these sort of things, like they would be there. And whenever you sort of see the demand sort of growing, right, they will again come back into picture.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting times. Uh, I think for somebody in the field of software development, very interesting times. Ark. So you've been in the industry for such a long time, right? And you've worked on multiple languages. Is there please help us understand what are the basic building blocks of a software, especially for someone who is entering into the field of software development. Kind of give an overview of what are the building blocks of a software.
Okay, certainly. Like, let's just take maybe a small example to just illustrate like what are the different sort of building blocks in a software, right? So, let's take maybe a basic sort of calculator application that we want to build. So, here is how basically we will build it. The first thing that actually comes is like the programming language. It is the base, like it's the foundation of writing any sort of software code. It kind of defines the logic and the behavior that the software is sort of going to provide. Okay, so in our case, let's just take maybe we take something like a JavaScript to write the calculators functionality. For instance, like what we'll do is like we will define functions for addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and so on. The next thing that is there is like most of you can say engineers or like upcoming professionals, they would actually practice it a lot. So it's data structure and algorithm. So algorithm typically is like something, when we say algorithm, it is basically step by step breakdown of that particular task. Like you try to break it down in small units, and then you try to sort of create a flow. So let's say in our example, let's say like we are adding two numbers, right? So the first thing over there is like we would need to input numbers that we'll take from the UI, and then basically return the sum. Okay, and data structures is basically something that actually does efficient sort of storage, uh, you can say utilization. So like in our case, like we can maybe take stacks or array to sort of store the manipulation results, inputs, etc., and so on. Okay, next thing that is there is like development tools. Normally, like if you talk about any language, right, there are certain languages like Java, Python, you can actually develop it in text editors, and then you can run it over there. But what these development environments or integrate IDEs they provide is like it kinds of gives you the whole sort of framework for writing code, testing code, debugging code, as well as like you can say version controls, etc., which kind of enhances the productivity and collaboration among the team members or software developers. Okay, next if we talk about it, like the thing is like you would have libraries, or you can say DLLs, which are sort of which kind of encapsulate ready-made solutions that are actually available for common tasks and helps developers streamline the whole process. So normally, like if someone is working on JavaScript, they would be familiar with JavaScript libraries like React, Vue.js, etc., and so on. So once this is done, the next part is like the front end. So here basically predominantly the thing that is there is like user interface and user experience, which we call it as UI and UX. UI sort of provides the button, import, display, etc., and UX sort of defines the layout, appearance, where those icons are supposed to be, how's the layout going to be, where we are going to display the results. Sort of it kinds of gives an visually appealing and sort of intuitive user experience to the user who is actually using this particular application. Next part to it is like we have talked about front end and back end. Next is like testing and debugging. So you have different sort of automation tools that are there nowadays. Like a lot of people do automations while testing, like just Mocha, Postman. Those are there where you can write automated test cases and you can run it, so that like you are able to verify the whole correctiveness of this particular code, like how efficiently like it's actually giving you results. uh, Once we are done with all these things, right, the next thing that comes is like your infrastructure and your deployment. So the calculator is ready, it is tested. So how we are going to deploy it, whether we are going to package it as a web application, whether do want we have it as a mobile application, or do you want to have it as a desktop application. So this is there, based upon that like you decide on storage, databases, servers, etc. uh, which kind of makes it accessible for this calculator to be visible to different users. One thing that is sort of nowadays is like a very critical is like security. So for us, like it was a basic example, but let's say like in real time situations you would have malicious users sort of, you would come in and try to give you requests like which actually disrupts your system, like virus or maybe certain injections that we do in SQL injections. So prevent that, like security is sort of a thing that developers or any software needs to sort of have. So that like in our case, let's say we do simple input validation to prevent like malicious inputs and secure the data transmission that is happening in our calculator, right? So collectively these are the building blocks which sort of are required in a software, so that it ensures like the calculator that we have created is accurate, is user friendly, and has handled all scenarios and is secure. So this is what I will put it.
So there are all these, different kinds of languages, platforms that are used. How does one decide which language is used for developing a certain application? What are the factors that are taken into?
See, it depends on use case to use case, right? So normally if you talk about industry, right, let's say I'm a startup. Okay, so if I have to sort of uh, start working and I kind of design a solution maybe in e-commerce space, etc., right? So normally the languages that we are using nowadays is like for backend, like normally you would have Python and Java. So these are predominantly used. Things that actually come in my mind is like whether do I have enough resources available over there. I can choose maybe a very niche sort of technology, let's say Rust or something, but do I have available people there in the market who are actually available to sort of work on it, and do they have the necessary expertise on it? So these are the sort of things that come into your mind. But predominantly, like if you talk about backend, the frameworks that are sort of very much available and in demand is like Java, then Go, then Python, to some extent Rust. In front end, if you go, like you have React, which is sort of coming up very well. Angular was there, it was also sort of a highlight at particular point of time, but nowadays like mostly React. And if you talk about mobile developments, it is like you use hybrid sort of, most of the companies try to use hybrid frameworks like you can say Flutter or maybe React Native, which kinds of improves the go to market speed. Like whenever I sort of develop a functionality, right, if I am able to kind of sell it or upload it in cross platforms, it kinds of give me efficiency in terms of my execution. Like in terms of resources also, I would need lesser number of maybe developers, I'm able to manage it well, etc., and so on. So these are the things. And apart from that, like you have cloud, which is there obviously, like cloud, like if you have knowledge about AWS, Google and GCP, these are sort of in demand. Azure.
Okay, great. Another question, that we keep talking about, and a lot of people ask also, what is a good code? Are all codes equal, or there are so many software developers, the outcome might be similar, but is there something like a good code for somebody who's starting out? How should they learn to write good codes? What is a good code in the first?
See, in a nutshell, the thing is like any code, okay, that like anyone is able to understand. Okay, anyone is able to extend it. Maybe you have designed certain functionality, but extensions are sort of easy to design, and it's easy to maintain and understand. So that like maybe tomorrow if some other developer sort of comes in, he's able to modify it much more easily, is sort of you can classify it as a good code. Then you have like principles like solid, dry, kiss, etc., and so on, which sort of defines them in much more detail. But let's say if we talk very simple, in very simple terms, right? So what actually designs a good code is like, number one point that would come to my mind is like readability. Okay, so the good code should be easy to understand, should have consistent naming conventions, maybe appropriate indentation, spacing, etc., so that it's clean and it has proper sort of comments over there. So in future, let's say if I again come back and I have to do something on that particular code, like it's easy to comprehend for me as well as other developers who are there, and it kinds of uh, like purpose whole purpose is like you understand this very easily, and you are able to develop functionalities on it very quickly. Next thing is like maintainability. Okay, so if we talk about good code, it should be maintainable, meaning like we are easily able to modify it, update it, extend it, and to like without having like sort of side effects like breaking the existing functionality that is there. Okay, so you have principles like single responsibility principle, which says like whenever you write a piece of code, right, that code should perform only a single sort of responsibility, so you create functions for those. You have separation of concern, which says like you don't typically both of them sort of in a vague way means the same thing, but you don't put two different functionalities in a same function. Okay, you actually divide it into two different functions. So what it becomes is like it's very easy to maintain, and tomorrow if I'm changing one functionality, I know exactly the scope of the change, I can actually test it much better, and I am sure exactly what it was intended to do, it is doing the same thing without introducing new bugs while making any change. Next is your efficiency. So efficiency is also basically like what's the execution time of your code, what is the resource utilization. We have touched upon it in a bit, in some extent, like when we are talking about algorithms and data structures, right? So what should we do? We should avoid unnecessary sort of computations, minimize the memory usage by using proper data structure, optimize our algorithms, and so on. So effective code obviously kind of gives you performance benefit, as well as like it will actually scale. So when we say scale is like, if today two users are using that particular code, the efficiency would not drastically be something like sort of linear. So if I deploy it on a particular service, right, if today two users are let's say using 100 MB of memory, tomorrow if it becomes 20, it should not grow by 10 times. It should be efficient, so that the growth is sort of not linear. Okay, it does that efficiently. Next, we had touched upon it like should be like sort of reusability. So how is the code reusable? It's also something like we talk about extensibility. So let's say you define a function, like you have to for example, let's say you want to add two numbers, right? One way to do it is like whenever you are writing your program, you do it then and there, you write a code which says a plus b is equal to c. This is one way to do it. But then again, if this functionality is needed by other modules or other developers, they will have to kind of again code it in their program. So rather than doing it that way, what we can do is like we can create functions for addition, which can be easily accessed by your code as well as others who are over there. So this sort of what it does, it like it reduces the redundancy. Okay, improves productivity. And then again, like if you have test sort of you have written test cases, you know exactly what this code is to do, and it's actually working very seamlessly. You are able to seamlessly integrate to it. So this is like you have principles like don't repeat yourself, what we call it as dry. So testability is the next thing. So again, like if you see, like more or less everything would sort of remain the same, but these are like, if you write a good code, like what are the sort of characteristics it has to have. So testability is like whenever sort of you write a code, you are able to automate the test cases, right? So let's say a plus b is equal to c, you write the unit test cases, and then basically you can run your inputs, so you know like this is testable. But if you put this code inside a big function and then you want to test whether your addition is working fine or not, that is very hard to do. You will have to kind of do a lot of things. And then again, when we talk about object oriented programming, right, this is sort of a basic one. So there are principles like dependency injections, okay, dependency inversion. So you will always try to use them, so that like next, like if let's say even if you use addition over there, right, if you want to mock certain inputs to test your code, like you are able to do it very fast using dependency injections and etc. Next, like the thing is, the main thing like is error handling. So your code, like you have written it with a very good intent, but there might be cases in which your code won't work. So good and robust sort of code should have proper error handling, and you should anticipate like what are the potential errors that you can get, and then gracefully handle that with proper sort of informative messages, logging, etc. and all. So basically, in a nutshell, like as I told, like if we have to talk about it, like it's readability, maintainability, efficiency, efficacy, reusability, testability, and scalability, and effective error handling. So these sort of are the building blocks what people need to focus like while writing a good code.
Great. Very nicely, a very crisp way done. So essentially, what I'm hearing is for freshers, especially, right, who are just probably in the 0 to 1 year experience range or are trying to get their first job, it is not enough if they simply learn the syntaxes and um, just learn how to code. There are other things, other skills that they have to develop alongside. How does one get to understand how to do all these things?
See, normally the thing is like you have to practice, and to an extent, like you have to make a deliberate attempt. Like normally, like people they will jump into programming questions. Like you have sort of challenges that are going on, right? You would go there and you would start writing your code in a particular way. So what it becomes like, you sort of write it without considering all these coding practices, etc. You just get the solution over there, but that is not enough. When you go to maybe an industry as a professional, right, so there are certain etiquettes while you write your code, a certain way in which you have to write your code. So you have to make a conscious sort of attempt, and that should be deliberate, so that you learn exactly how to structure your code, how do you design your functions, etc. So this sort of comes with practice, or maybe nowadays like the time, like 10 years, 12 years back, the expectation from the industry was different, right? So if you know to write a code, you know to solve a problem, it was more than enough. But nowadays the competition is there. You have huge number of resources, like number of engineers that are coming in, and you don't have actually those many numbers of opportunities out there. So you need to practice it, be it like you join any coaching centers or maybe training centers, upskilling centers. You practice in open source sort of forums, GitHub, etc., which are there where you contribute in code, etc. But these are sort of foundations. It's not necessary to solve a problem. You should be very sure like what the foundation is. That is the essence. Like when you solve a problem, if you solve it in a proper way, that actually gives you much more satisfaction than just maybe somehow you have done it. So that's not the intent, like when you are actually practicing or going to develop your skills in software engineering or development.
Right. So probably, keeping these things in mind gives people an edge over competition because
Yeah, edge is edge is required, because nowadays right now the situation is like people means companies are sort of becoming sort of cost conscious, etc., and all those things. But on top of that, a talent always has a demand, right? If you are talented, if you have the skill sets, I think any point of time in your career, like, and you can stand out from everyone else who is out there. So that's important. So if you do it in a proper way, I think that actually stands out. Like whenever you give coding tests also, or coding interviews also, it kind of helps sort of the interviewer to understand like your foundation is right. You do things properly and then in the right way. So if you do it right way, then obviously you need lesser training and all those things. So just to give a paradigm, like if startup sort of joins, right, they won't invest so heavily in training or development of someone who is sort of fresh in the college, right? They would expect certain amount of, you can say, expertise over there, and then they will put you into projects where basically you learn from others, etc. So if you have your basics right, you understand the code better, you write the code better. So this kind of gives a good impression, like whenever you go into any sort of industry or interviews also.
Right. Thank you. That was pretty insightful, actually. Um, for someone who is starting out, starting to build a career in software development, what should the focus be? How should they actually prepare for a career?
See, like as I said, right, you have normally lots of things. So industry is so robust, right? So lots of development, etc. Everything are happening everywhere, but I think the fundamental sort of remains the same: strong foundation. That is the fundamental skill that someone has to have. So if you're talking about that, like I think programming language. So any sort of programming language, be it like predominantly, as I said, like industry is using maybe Java, Python, C sharp, the JavaScript, Ruby. So you should be proficient in that. You should understand the syntax, data structure, algorithms, and at least expertise in one of the programming language is sort of necessary. So this is the first thing. Next next sort of is like problem solving sort of skill. Okay, this is sort of you need to develop strong problem solving skills by practicing maybe algorithms, solving coding challenges, etc. Take complex problem, break it down into smaller manageable unit, and try to solve those small units, and then basically you get the whole sort of big picture over there. So this is important, and this actually comes with practice. Both of them are basically practice. The more you practice, the more you develop solutions, the more it sort of helps you. And when we are doing it right, we actually need to sort of imagine like in a real world scenario. You pick maybe any real world scenario. Maybe you want to develop a e-commerce site, or you want to develop maybe something sort of food delivery site. You take those things and you work on those problems. See how, what sort of algorithms you need, what sort of data structures you need, whether you use arrays, linked list, tree, queue, graph. How do you sort it, how do you traverse it? So these data structures and algorithm is something that anyone who is sort of starting off, right, problem solving, data structure, these are sort of being asked everywhere. So if you go to any sort of interview, these are the things that they will evaluate. Next is like, as I said, like when you talk about real time entities, normally object oriented programming actually comes in your mind. So languages like Java. So Java has a huge demand. Most of the organizations that are out there, right, they are actually working on it. So if you want to select a particular language, maybe Java is sort of a good starting point. Okay, to start it. If you are doing web development, they may maybe languages like maybe your frameworks like React, Angular. These are a good point to start. Next is like your databases. So not maybe very extensive, but you should have at least you should be familiar with like relational databases, non-relational databases, queries, how they basically operate, what is the working principle, and how do you sort of manage it. Next is like maybe testing, debugging, whatever you write. Like it's not necessary you write the code. Like whenever you go to an interview, right, you should properly show them basically the different use cases that are supposed to be there, and you run them, do a dry run and show them. So these are important. And like I would say sort of foundation, like if sort of you want to become maybe a good software development, or want to be sort of successful out there.
Great. So for a company like DP World, what do they look for in a candidate? How does one crack into a company like DP World? What does a company expect?
See, normally, like it's not only about DP World, as I said, right? So in DP World, normally what you have, like you will have 2 to 3 sort of technical rounds and maybe a behavioral round. In technical rounds, you would be asked questions about data structure, algorithm, programming, and so on. So the first thing, like if you actually want to improve your chances, right, as I said, like you develop strong technical skills. Like you actually have a language, you pick a language whichever you are comfortable with, like Java, Python, something. And like you have to keep honing your skills, programming skills in those languages. okay, gain expertise in data structures, algorithms, maybe system design, not as such for a fresher who is sort of coming in, but yeah, practicing coding regularly, solving coding challenges, working on projects which sort of demonstrate your ability. These are sort of important. And then the second thing that is actually there, right? uh, the environment is such, right? So if you have like sort of industry experience that you actually do in internships, or maybe you take workshops or trainings, etc., if you acquire practical expertise through maybe all this internship projects, open sourcing training, that actually demonstrates your ability to work on real world problems. And then you basically uh, actually are able to showcase your skills, like that you have developed in these things. Next, like whenever you go to any company, like let's say you come to DP World, so you have a lot of material available in the internet, like you uh, practice like experience, people actually share their experience, what are the process, etc. And also you practice coding, you just go through them, so that back of your mind you know like whether you are going in the right direction or not. So coding problems, algorithm challenges, etc. And as I said, like soft skill, right? So soft skill is also something that is sort of needed, because like we are a global company, we operate like out of more than 75 countries, like your people who are there in London, etc. So soft skill are valuable, like communication, collaboration, teamwork, this sort of would be there. And if you are able to showcase those sort of things also in an interview process, right, it's an added advantage. And normally there is a term called like devil's advocate, right? So basically even if you're doing fine, right, you will find some certain interviewer sort of asking you repeatedly the same sort of questions. So how do you maintain your sort of composure in those sort of situations is also important. They know exactly what you have done and whether it is correct or wrong, but they sometimes try to test your sort of patience, or maybe try to see whether like you can actually go beyond what you know exactly or not. Okay, so they would be looking for like certain things, like it's just a small thing time that you would get, but like they will see whether you believe in continuous learning, you take feedbacks properly, etc., and so on. And the last thing that is like showcase your try to showcase your abilities over there, whatever you know. I think it's better to go and say like, okay, these are the things that I'm actually proficient with, for any sort of starter. Because in the end, like anyone who is taking the interview knows like you don't know everything over there. So you try to showcase them. Okay, if you have github profiles, if you have lead code profiles, you try to mention them in the CV, tell them the sort of problems that you solve, and so on. So uh, that's nothing specific, but any interview that you go, you would have to do it. Then again, it depends like uh, how much you know about the company. Like maybe you can learn something about the domain, so you know the type of questions that can be coming. Maybe if I'm an e-commerce company, you would get more questions related to like how do searches work, etc., and so on. If I'm logistics company, there would be certain problem statements, like maybe a traveling salesman problem, etc. So those would be there. So that is how it is.
Yeah, the good thing is that so many of these problem statements are available on platforms like Kaggle and others. So I think there is enough exposure, I mean, platforms available for people to pick up these different domain-specific problems, especially at the fresher level, and keep solving them. I think there's no shortage of resources that way these days.
Yeah, so there is no shortage of resources, and that is actually there in the back of mind of the interviewer as well. So that's the sort of expectation that is there. I think to some extent, like if you have mentors, right, if you have people with whom you can talk, they sort of guide you through the process, and that actually becomes easier. So sometimes, like you can have different personas in a people, right? In different sort of people are there. So some maybe they can actually learn it from the internet and they can actually incorporate them well and good. Some maybe would need a bit of guidance, because so that like if you are solving a particular set of problem, right, you keep on solving the same type of problems, it doesn't actually help you.
Right.
Someone should be there sort of to guide you and take you to the next level, or the next set of problems that you need to keep resolving. So these are important. So yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. I mean, lot of interesting things, practical on-ground reality that you brought forth in this discussion. Any last parting words? I know you have given a lot of information, but anything else that you want to say before we close?
See, what I would say is like, nowadays, like as you said, like technology is sort of evolving, right? Technology is sort of changing so fast, like like you also have to be robust. Okay, so the core things over there are like, how soon you are able to adapt. Like you can't have fixation to a particular thing. Let's say you do C++, which is fine, like you have expertise over there. Next, move on to the next sort of upskilling, like maybe learn a different language. Okay, if you know backend, maybe learn front end. So I think that is there. So continuous, keep on learning and learning new things. And as I said, like problem solving, critical thinking, these are important. And bit of soft skill, like collaboration, communication, that are there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. We'll come back to you for more technical sessions. You know, we know technically you're very, very strong. So probably another time we can discuss some case studies with you in depth. We'll go slightly more on the technical side. But thank you so much for this time. It was amazing fun talking to you today. Thank you
Yeah,
so
yeah,
much.
same here, same here, and best of luck to everyone who are out there.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Bye.
Bye bye.